Hello, hello, hello. This video is for my friend Preti from India. I have a beautiful rock from the ocean for relaxation. And I got grounded outside. I was on the lawn, lying on the lawn, sunbathing. It was gorgeous. And then I watched a lecture by Sam Wagner, psychologist. Very good lecture. I copied the title of the video. I have it in my cloud memory on the Chromebook. And tonight, when I go in the chat room, I will give everyone homework to do. And I will post this title of the lecture so that they can copy it and paste it into the YouTube search, and then the lecture will come up. And I highly recommend for people to watch his lectures, because watch one or two lectures every day. He makes one or two every day, and they are absolutely fantastic. Okay, highly recommend his lectures. We learn a lot from him. And then I talked to you on Facebook, and I told you about the wild horses in Nevada and Reno, near Reno area. And so how much that has made me grieve when they started to round up wild horses out there. And I have seen it. We have been out there not that long ago. We've been out there in the high desert, and we have seen, even on the California side, we have seen those horse traps that the cattle ranchers put up, and that's absolutely unethical. And they were wondering who we were, because I could tell they didn't feel very comfortable about us being there, because we camped there one night, and they didn't know, because they can tell by our vehicle who we are. So we could be some kind of governmental authority. Those people, they are very, very scared that the government could be controlling them in terms of animal rights. And that does happen, but I think that's rather rare. When that happens, I give these people my deepest respect, who work for the government and who will use that position to protect animals. It usually doesn't happen in this way. Okay, so if we had any kind of governmental, legislative leverage, we would use it to protect animals for sure. So bothered me really, really horribly what happened out there in the high desert in Nevada, with the cattle ranchers rounding up wild horses and then selling them to meat markets, slaughterhouses, and auctioning them off. Some people bought them, some people, they use this terminology, breaking a horse. They want to break their souls, they want to break their minds. It is infinitely heartbreaking, and I cannot stand it. Okay, I feel with the horses so infinitely much. And so it was like, I don't know, when was it? In 2005, we were out there in the Nevada. We were also recently, we crossed across the border into Nevada, but not very far in, just it's all the same territory there, and sagebrush, rolling hills, and very, very beautiful. But in 2005 we went all the way to Reno and those entire surrounding regions. And tourists come there to see the wild horses. And what happened is we were still traveling in our motorhome with our former dog Samantha, Harlequin Great Dane, and I had one apple left. And I thought, okay, I'm going to give that apple to the wild horses. And I took that apple in my hand. I rinsed it. I cleaned it up because it had some wax on it. I don't know. They may have sprayed that. It was a grocery store apple. And so I walked out there and I saw the herd of wild horses, and they were scared. They're scared of people. They don't trust people for good reason. And so I squatted down there, so I kind of I made myself look shorter, by just squatting there, holding the apple out like this. And I talked very, very lovingly and very, very sweet to them. And I said, you beautiful, sentient, gorgeous beings, I have an apple for you. Come and get the apple. And the females were very, very afraid. They hid themselves behind the males. And so the mothers and the fathers, they were very scared of Nicola, yes. And but two teenage boy horses, they decided, we're going to give this a chance. And they came forward. They were curious. They wanted to see what I got there. They could smell the apple. That was like, this lady there, she has an apple. I wonder if we can have that apple. So they came over very, very cautiously, and I held the apple like this, and they smelled on the apple. And then finally one bit into the apple, bit half of the apple off, and I gave the other half to the other horse. And they ate the apple, and they nodded their heads, and they said, thank you, Nicola, that was very nice of you. And I said, I am so deeply touched that you came over and you trusted me and you took the apple from my hand. That is so, so nice. And then after a little while of standing there and looking at me with wonder, they gradually walked back to the herd, and I walked back to the motorhome. And as I came back to the motorhome, a large car with squealing wheels drove by, stopped there. An older couple got out of their car, and they said to us, where are the wild horses? And in that moment, the wild horse herd, they galloped past, but in a big circle around that parking lot, and shot off towards the horizon. And I thought, well, of course, I would do the same thing if I was a wild horse. If this car would come by like this and with squealing wheels and making dust and impatient visitors getting out wanting to see the wild horses, and they're completely not sensitive, they're not friendly, they're impatient, they're not attuned to those animals. And I didn't say anything to them. I didn't tell them that I fed the apple to the teenage boy horses. I didn't even want to talk to them. So I just waved and I got into the motorhome and we left. So that was my encounter with the wild horses. And I've been wanting to make a video about this. And I wanted to tell you something about when I had my very first horseback riding lesson with my mother together. We went to a stable and in our local community, and I was 12. I think. I had been to pony farms before that. My brother and I, like for vacations, my parents would do something else, go on a different vacation, and they park us at the pony farm. That we did this several times. But the actual very first horseback riding lesson on a saddle, on a larger horse, so that was when I was about 12. And so we went to that stable, and there were large horses, each individually in a very narrow stable, very narrow enclosure, each one separated from one another. And it didn't feel good at all, but I was a child, I was a teenager. I was very, very naive at that time. And it smelled like mold in there, and it didn't feel good, and it felt very stressful. So I picked a light beige horse. I felt a connection to him, and he was the troublemaker of all of them. He was the one that was kind of rebellious against that situation there, and I understand him. I felt that's why I probably felt that connection. So it's very unconscious, these kind of things. So I put the saddle on him. I led him out into that horseback riding arena, indoor arena, very large, and he was very, very spooked out about everything. And then they put up a barrier to jump over, just one level barrier, and he was very, very, very afraid of that of that barrier. He couldn't stand it. And then he ran past the barrier. He did not want to jump over that barrier, and everything scared him, and he was just very, very uncomfortable about everything. And he was also rebellious. He didn't want this. He didn't want anyone riding on him. And then I think we went there 2 or 3 times, and then the last time we were there, he buckled and he kicked me off his back, and I fell down, and I cried, and I thought he didn't like me, and I hung my head down, and they wanted me to get back on the horse, and I said, no, he doesn't want me to go back on his back. He doesn't like anyone on his back, and he doesn't feel comfortable. And I felt like I was very sad because I thought he doesn't like me, but I also felt terribly sorry for him for being in this narrow prison all the time, and it just didn't feel right, the whole thing. So we left, and then we didn't come back, and then we found a different pony farm locally where we could go to like once a week, and where I could take horseback riding lesson, and that is an Iceland horse pony farm ranch. And then later on my mother bought 2 Iceland horses from them, and then we created our own horse community on the meadows that my parents were renting from the governmental land around their own property. So they were renting that for a very low price for farming type of rent prices. And so then my grandfather had a very, very large horse on that governmental farm land where there's also a barn, and so but that barn is open. They can go in there and go back out if they want to. They don't have to be confined. So that's a much better situation. And so my grandfather had this very, very tall and large horse, and I remember photos taken when I was 1 year old, and they lifted me up onto the horse, and I was so happy, and I felt so, my facial expression being connected to that horse, made me feel so good. So I've always been in awe of that big horse and this gentle mouse and velveteen nose with that big upper lip, and so and they had, my grandfather always had these annual horseback riding events, but they were kind of imitations of the fox hunt. They were not real fox hunts. They're more conscientious about this. My grandfather actually was very much pro animal welfare. My whole family is, and it's genetic also. And so my grandfather would never allow a fox being hunted as they do in England. And that, I find that extremely unethical. And I don't know if you're familiar with the book The Horse Boy by Rupert Isaacson. That is a very deeply touching story, but Rupert Isaacson himself, the writer of the book, a good person, but he was very unconscious about the fox hunts which he had been participating in his whole life. He's from England, and that's what he had participated in probably from an early age on. And it was later on that shamans from Africa actually had to tell him that he cannot continue these fox hunts. And then he asked them, why do you think that is? Why is that? Do you have some kind of logical reasoning for this? It's for ethical reasons. And they didn't want to argue with him. They knew that this wasn't going to put him into the right mind state to argue at all. They just said, we just know intuitively, if you want to help your son, Rowan, to heal from the autism, you have to stop participating in those fox hunts. And he did. He stopped and had helped Rowan to heal. Rowan, highly, highly sensitive boy. And a horse helped him heal. And it's absolutely gorgeous. And so because of that, Rupert got into helping autistic children with horseback riding lessons, but in a very specific and gentle way, and to connect these children to this live animal, sentient being. And the horses, they are helping these autistic children to heal from their condition that is locking them into a mental prison. So the horses bring them out of that mental prison and helping them heal these neurological, psychological, terrible problems, the fear, and helping them dissolve that trauma, bringing that trauma into consciousness, and in a way that it is no longer traumatizing. It's no longer feeling like a trauma. It's, bringing it into consciousness, conscious awareness in form of knowledge and wisdom, and it's no longer making them afraid. So the horses are the best therapists. So I just wanted to talk about this a little bit. And so maybe this book, The Horse Boy, I think this would be a real fantastic healing book for you. That's what I believe. I can feel this, because you said you feel a little bit afraid, or horses make you nervous, and you have horses, your parents have horses. So I think this will bring you closer to understanding your parents' horses and to create a connection to them, because you said that one of the female horses was very nervous around some of the workers. So pay very close attention to those workers that are working in the stables, and only accept people that are sensitive and that are treating the horses with respect, and they're gentle to them. This is very, very important. Okay, those are very infinitely highly sensitive beings, the horses, and they cannot be put in a narrow confinement. They cannot be in a very small enclosure all day long. They have to have an open barn. They have to be able to go out onto a meadow and to be able to run and to groom each other, to have contact with each other. They are social beings. A horse can also never be abandoned. A horse can never be left alone anywhere, neither in a barn or stable or out on a meadow. They can never be left alone by themselves. They have to have a companion animal. This is my message to the whole world. I see this here in the United States happening all the time. Lonely horses hanging their heads down. One horse, I talked to the woman, a woman from Belgium, and she was making excuses. Her husband was old and sick and she needed to take care of him. I said, your horse is out there alone, hanging her head down. Okay. Yes, but I don't have time. I said, you have to bring up the time to spend with your horse. That's cruel. You cannot leave your horse out there alone. And she knew the same people that we knew, and so I thought it was important for me to establish this connection to that lady and to talk to her, but she was really trying to get on my good side because she thought I was some kind of animal protection agent or something. I wish there were people like this, actually, but I wish maybe there are some, but this is very, very rare. So people always assume, oh, they're looking over our shoulders. This is very, very rare when that actually happens. So the people that will do this, those are regular people that are volunteers that they are not even connected to a group. They will come up to you and say, look, you can't do this to your animal. You can't leave your animal out there abandoned. So, and then later on, my friend who knows her said the horse died from loneliness. So the lady did not listen to me. So I bring these stories up because I'm hoping that these horses, with their suffering, that their stories can touch someone else who sees this information. So who watches documentary films, who watches The Horse Boy or PETA videos, undercover videos, or other people's videos, other groups, Mercy for Animals videos, or my videos, or comments, or discussions on this subject, animal rights. Very, very important, because if we begin to care more, okay, we will make the world a better place. I know this for sure. I can't make this video too long or it freezes in and then it somehow it disappears and I don't know where it goes and then the file is not readable. Okay, take care, Preti. I love you very much. Bye bye.